Has any movie or TV show accurately shown what you do at work?
So the closest one would be Mr. Robot,
Okay.
the television series. It came out a couple
Mhm.
years ago. It's pretty good, actually, as a show in general. And they do the best job I've seen so far of depicting actual attack scenarios. Um, and they do show some on-screen like code. And the tools that they're using, it's accurate. They're legitimate tools, and the
Mhm.
processes that they go through, and the scenarios that they play out are actual scenarios that could happen. So it made it definitely more believable. It's not just green matrix on the screen, people
Yeah.
tapping on keyboard like,
Yeah.
oh, we're hacking away type deal. So
Yeah.
I definitely appreciated that throughout that series for
It's
sure.
not just somebody going, "Enhance." Hello and welcome back to the Cybrary podcast. I'm your host today, Thomas Horlocker, and today I am speaking with Owen Dubiel, a information security engineer. How are you doing today, Owen?
Good. How are you?
Doing very well. So kind of to kick things off, how long have you been in the cybersecurity engineer or the cybersecurity space or as working as an engineer?
So I've been in the space going on, what is it, 7 years now. I've been an engineer going on three. So first half of my career, I spent as a traditional analyst in a SOC type role. Um, I did have the ability to kind of dabble in the engineering field in that current role, and just kind of play around with different tools, and I was able to kind of spread my wings a little bit, and grow my experience from there.
Yeah. So how did you get started? Did you always want to be an engineer, or was it something kind of you picked up as you were studying something else?
Yeah, so actually, I was I was in college as my first year, and I didn't know what I really wanted to study. So I was taking all my prereqs, and I was interning at my where my father worked, was just um, a healthcare company, just trying to make some extra money. And I noticed the IT guys running around and like setting up computers, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like that would be a fun job to, and that kind of set me on the tech path. I knew
Hmm.
I wanted to do something in technology. Um, so that turned me on to the information assurance program at my university. And so from there, that's kind of where I got my background, and then my start. I started as a security analyst intern at a large mortgage company here. So that's kind of how I got the ball rolling. I mean, I had a friend that worked there, and he, said, "Hey, I know they're looking for a role here." So he kind of, laid the way for me a little bit.
Yeah. Was it kind of the hardware aspect that kind of intrigued you, or watching those IT people kind of run around and get stuff ready, or
It
was
was
it?
it was a little of both hardware, software, but it was the just the day to day of everything that they were able to do was different, and I liked that. I knew that from the intern jobs that I did do, it was in regulatory and compliance, and it was just the same mundane over and over, and I was like,
Yeah.
I can't, I'm falling asleep. So,
Yeah.
but when I seen them, like when I got to interact with them, whether it was they had to fix something on my computer or just watching them run around and fighting fires, I was like, I'd rather be doing something like that.
Yeah, where every day is different, where there's always a new problem to solve. You're not kind of doing the same thing day after day after
Exactly.
day,
Yep.
kind of thing. Yeah, I mean that's something I hear a lot from engineers is why they kind of like getting into it is that every day is something new. The industry is always changing. There's always a new attack or defense or something coming out that you got to be up to date on. So
Absolutely.
the ever changing always helps. Um, do you remember any like early hurdles, like when you kind of started getting in? Was there any issues or was there any topics that were just harder for you to learn, whether, the physical hardware side or on the coding side?
So I'm trying to think. So I guess the way that I look at the security industry is there's two ways that you can kind of get into it. The way that I got into it was I learned the security best practices in college up front, and then I picked up the technical stuff along the way through experience. But then there's the reverse side of that, where you can be a technical person, like a systems engineer, network engineer. You learn the technical up front, and then you pick up the actual security terminology or best practices
Hmm.
along the way. So there's two different avenues into that. So for me, it was picking up, okay, I know what I need to secure. I know, roughly how to do it. Then from a technical aspect, I would have to, learn as I went, either, working side by side with someone or just doing online trainings or whatever it may be. But that's kind of the way that I see getting into the security industry. The
Hmm.
two of the main struggles is you either know one or the other and having to pick up on the other in a pretty quick manner.
Yeah. So when you were still in school, so like your sophomore year, is that when you kind of changed and went kind of the engineering path? And was it like very hands on or?
Um,
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty hands-on. They had a pretty good lab at my university. Did some basic development work, but it was mostly secure. So they had some good labs where we would do malware analysis. We would set up a Kali Linux and uh, you know kind of go through all the traditional hacking steps. But it was very security 101. So um,
mhm.
I had a good idea of what to do, generally. But truthfully, once you get into the workplace, it's a whole different ball game usually.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's what you're learning versus like an actual practical application of, what's really going to be doing. Plus each organization has their own kind of way they like to do things.
Exactly.
Um,
That's one of the biggest things I've seen is like it's good to know the the bare bones, but each enterprise likes to use their own tools, or not very many universities, not very many enterprises will use what you learn in college as far as like the open source
yeah.
vulnerability scanners, or there's usually a contractual obligation for them to have to pay for the licensing or whatnot. So
Yeah.
um, and not to jump ahead or anything, but that's kind of what inspired me to come, work for Cybrary here is being able to bring that to the table, to bring um, that expertise of laying out some quick start guides on, you know, the actual vendors and the actual tools that are used in the industry, to give at least entry people a heads up of like, hey, you know that you're applying for this job and they use XYZ vendor or XYZ tool, you can take
Mhm.
these courses and have a leg up on maybe the other guy that's applying.
Yeah, so I mean, let's dig into that. Like, how
Sure.
did you hear about Cybrary, and then what kind of made you want to start kind of doing exactly what you were just talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, ever since I graduated college, I actually did, even when I started working in my day job, I did freelance work on the side. As far as I did a lot of content creation, blog posts, articles, white papers,
Hmm.
just random, whatever I could get. So I've been doing that just as long as I've been working, and it's just kind of helped. It's a good break from the day to day technical work. It's nice to be able to talk about it and not actually have to do it every day.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, the supplemental income and everything. But so I was doing that, and I was actually writing blog posts for Cybrary on their writers team, and someone internally kind of turned me on to this role that I'm in now with Cybrary, the SME architect. So I said, what the heck, applied for it, and I really liked the culture just based on working with the team, on the blog team and whatnot. And really, that's kind of how I got jumped into it, and I'm a month in now, and I'm loving it so far.
Yeah, you get to talk to me. I'm
Exactly.
sure that's a huge plus. It was probably top of your list and what you
Oh
wanted
yeah.
to do. Um, so what are you looking to like those trainings that you're looking to create? Are there any specific ones, or what are you working on now?
Sure. Yeah, we're still ironing out the details. Right now, we're going through like a full course and lab review to kind of baseline what needs to be updated, what needs to be removed, what needs to be kept.
Hmm.
And I'm focusing strictly on the defensive quadrant, defensive infrastructure quadrant. And my main goal, what I'd like to do, is be able to bring those quick start guides. I'm thinking like in the 20 to 30 minute range, like
Yeah.
something that's digestible you can do on your lunch break. Um, and it's a quick win, but it's something applicable, like
Hmm.
of, like I said earlier, a vendor specific. If for example, if you're going into a job that uses CrowdStrike and you need to know how to build prevention policies or set up machine learning exclusions, things like that.
Hmm.
It would be nice. This is me speaking from experience. If I had a quick way, I could go to a video series and it'll walk me through exactly the steps I need to do to ensure I do it right, in a
Yep.
production environment. Um, so that's kind of where my head's going with that.
Hmm.
I know there's some hurdles we have to work through around licensing and whatnot to be able to provide those walkthroughs, but that's the path that I would like to head down.
Yeah, and that's great because I mean, like we said, I mean, every enterprise uses something different, and you could be on the lookout for a new job, and you found one that is right up your alley, exactly what you want to do, a company that you really like, but they use a tool you've never used before. Uh-oh, what do I do now? I want to make sure I'm ready for the interview or any technical questions or something. Being able to have like a quick guide or something you can jump into and follow along and at least understand the tool a little bit is
Absolutely.
giant help.
And even for working professionals that are already in a job
Hmm.
and their boss comes down and says, hey, we bought this vulnerability scanner, you've never used it before, but you have 3 weeks to get it up and running.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it'd be nice to be able to go to Cybrary, type in the name. Oh, look, there's 10 labs on it. At
Hmm.
least it gets me pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, you at least have something to sink your teeth into and mess things up and break things a little bit and figure out how the tool works or instead of just going in blind and I'll figure it out as best I can kind of thing.
Exactly. That's the goal.
Well, cool. Yeah, I mean that's a great thing. I mean, definitely will be a huge help to a lot of people on the site, and I know a lot of people kind of look for that stuff. Kind of moving back a little bit, what is your current role? What do you currently do?
You're saying for like my day
Yeah,
job
your
to do?
actual
Yeah.
job. Yeah, day job. Yeah.
So, information security engineer, primary responsibilities is around infrastructure security. So again, defending the enterprise. The company I work for is in the financial industry, so a lot of PII data, sensitive
Hmm.
information handling. So essentially, just protecting all of our customer and client data. Um, a lot of that day to day work. I mean, I manage our EDR solution, so endpoint detection and response, our SIM solution, our DLP. Our vulnerability scanning solution. So there's a lot that goes into it. Especially since I do kind of act as like a dual role too. So I split my time between engineer and analyst. So
Okay.
I not only set up and manage and update, make sure all the tools are configured properly and running, but then reactively as well, I'm doing those traditional analyst duties, responding to detections, doing investigations, um, internally, reviewing and doing access approvals, things like that. So um, I've got quite a bit on my plate there, but it's good because I do have the flexibility to be able to dabble and play in new technologies and
Hmm.
just keep my palate fresh.
Yeah, that's nice. Like being able to kind of have those dual roles. Is that kind of what a typical day is like too? Just kind of going back and forth between the two kind of different aspects of your position?
Oh, absolutely. I usually start my morning off by clearing out the queues, going through and okay, check this tool, make sure all the detections are at least cleared out or at least acknowledged that I have understanding of what's going on. If not, you have to do a quick investigation to ensure it's a false positive or whatnot. Um, and then usually I'll kind of bounce back and forth. I'll jump into whatever my task is for the day, whether it's conducting a POC or if I have meetings or whatever the case may be. There's always something going on,
Yeah.
especially if there's a new vulnerability that comes out. I want to make sure that we're covered. So I may check the vulnerability scanner results to make sure that we're covered. And if we have assets that are affected, I have to effectively coordinate that with our systems team to get those updated and patched. So it's always that, and that's really what turned me on to the whole industry. To start with, is that every week there's something different, and
Yeah.
there's something new, and it just keeps you living.
Yeah, I mean that's just what we were talking about kind
Yeah.
of at the top of the show is, way back when you're in college seeing those IT people running around and now, you're one of those people. Every day something different, every week something new's coming up. Keeps you on your toes and keeps everything fresh
Oh
instead
yeah.
of just kind of stagnant, which is nice. um, so what do you like most about like your role? Like what gets you really excited? What do you enjoy most kind of on your day-to-day activities?
Um, let's see. What do I enjoy most? I do enjoy learning new things. So it's fun to be able to kind of go through all my, my threat feeds and my, wherever I get my intel from, and just kind of learn new things as they happen. Um, but it is fun too to see internally, the efforts that I put in come to fruition, and really, whether it be, a new prevention policy I put in actually stops, a file from executing, and you get that alert and you're like, yes, I did it right. Or you create a new detection rule within the sim, and it triggers, and you're like, oh, okay. You kind of get those small little wins along the way
Mhm.
that help you kind of keep pushing along, knowing that every little bit really helps, protect your organization. So definitely those small wins. And just being able, and also too, because our team does put out like newsletters and internal messages to the company about cybersecurity and this and that, and to see the culture blossom with cybersecurity at the company too,
Mhm.
um, is motivating as well. When you see other people, like, don't let others piggyback into the building, or if they, what I'm saying, like, they report something that looks malicious or fishy.
Yeah.
um, those little wins kind of attribute to the day to day.
Yeah, when you start seeing it outside of, the security team or the engineering org, you see typical everyday kind of employees, like picking those things up. Yeah, it's definitely I can see could, see being like really nice to see and hear and kind of makes you feel like you are making an impact. Usually, security engineers and people like yourself are kind of always in the background. You don't, they're just there. Most employees don't know what they do or who they are or anything. So yeah, those kind of little wins definitely I can see just kind of really feel good.
Oh yeah, they fuel me every day for sure.
Yeah. Is there any particular like is your role particular for a good type of person, like real analytical, or is do you see kind of a gamut of just kind of a different a little bit of everybody?
um, yeah, no, analytical is definitely important, but there is definitely a big social aspect to it. You
Mhm.
still have to be able to communicate. Whether it be internally with team members or with leadership. Um, you know, we have a set budget, but that budget's not guaranteed. You still have to, what I'm saying, you still have to show and prove what you're purchasing, and
Yeah.
how it benefits the company and the return on investment. So um, it's definitely a good combination of the social aspect of it, as well as the analytics, and a little bit of self leadership as well. You got to hold yourself accountable,
Mhm.
ensure that you're doing your daily checks, and communicating with team members as needed. So um, yeah, no, it's a good, at least in my opinion, it's a good all around experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always interested in kind of the non-technical skills for like a very technical role. It's those things that you don't often hear that much about, or you just assume that oh, it's a bunch of really technical, brainy people,
Hmm.
and they're not good at communicating and stuff like that. But it's also you have to explain to non-technical people, I assume, all of the time. Well, this is why I need this, and this is what it's going to do, and this is how it'll affect the
Yep.
business, and this is what we're preventing, and all of those things.
And I think that that's why I've actually, the content creation, the freelancing part of my life has been so, I don't know, successful or relieving, is because
Mhm.
I have developed those skills to be able to break it down for, you know, everyday Joe Schmo, or even at the C level. They interpret information differently.
Yeah.
And found that I've got a pretty good knack at being able to, create that scenario per whoever's, receiving that information. So um, it will definitely play a huge role into my experience here with Cybrary as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I actually pulled some questions from our community here at Cybrary, people that will eventually be taking some of your courses, just to kind of see like what questions they might have for somebody like yourself. So the first one I got was, how do you stay and grow in your role as like an InfoSec engineer?
Okay. Um, I'm always curious. I mean, that comes more naturally, but I'm always just looking to find the next greatest and best thing. Try
Hmm.
not to stay comfortable with any one solution. I mean, it's good to have your go-to solutions, but things advance so quickly in the industry. You always kind of have to continuously branch out. But as far as like my knowledge goes, certifications are huge. Or even if you're not chasing a certification, just like that advanced learning of skill sets
Hmm.
that apply to that role. So I have, for me particularly, I found that the vendor specific certifications have done well for me. Both employers like them, but then they're also very hands on, and you can apply them day one. Once you
Hmm.
have those, tool specific certifications.
Yeah, it seems. I mean, something that we've touched on before is just that not being complacent. You always The industry is changing today.
Yep,
By the end of this conversation, something else new will have popped up. Like you always got to be at the forefront and searching for the next thing.
exactly. Yep.
Okay, cool. The other one are what are the top things somebody should know for this role? Like you mentioned certifications. Is there any particular certifications that are better, or is there any particular skills or things that would be best suited for someone like yourself?
Let's see here. I mean, a lot of what I'm saying, a lot of the hands-on certifications, as far as at least knowing the ecosystem of the tool sets that any given enterprise would use. So a SIM solution is a big one. An
Hmm.
EDR solution is another one. A DLP, vulnerability scanner. Um, at least on the defensive quadrant, those four are big ones. I mean, you could throw CASB in there if you wanted to, but just even if just understanding those solutions in general and how they generally operate is a good start. And then maybe just picking out one of the top ones in that industry and going after it. So example, like for a SIM, you got Sumo Logic or Splunk. Um, they both offer very intuitive courses that offer certifications, official, printout that you can hang on your wall or whatever you want.
Hmm.
But they are recognized in the industry by both employers and actual certifying authorities as well. So you can get CPEs for them. Um, so I mean, I really, when I have the opportunity to go after those, I do. I have a handful, both on the SIM and the EDR side. Yeah, that I mean, the I really found that's been the biggest bang for my buck is
Yeah.
getting both functionality and certification. Now, I do have some of your traditional, SANS certifications as well,
Hmm.
and like for example the GSEC by GSEC there. It's a basically a security fundamentals certification. It does a great job of covering you know the day in the life of a defensive security person and kind of
Okay.
what you would expect to go through at a bare minimum. But it uses open source free you know solutions that anybody can use, which is great, especially for somebody maybe that's working that has a low budget or no
Hmm.
budget.
Yeah.
It's a good starting point, and it teaches you the fundamentals. And then taking that next step would be the vendor specific stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Just especially calling out, sometimes the cost can be a huge barrier to entry for people. So some of those ones that already have, using those open source tools and stuff that just really helps people kind of get hands on without, a huge expense for
Yep.
them.
And
Um,
I mean, obviously the big one's the CISP, and everyone kind of totes that, which
yeah.
definitely toed it. But I think the GSEC is at least a good stepping stone to it, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's great advice. So now I just have some questions for myself, just to kind of make this a little more fun for me, since I'm not a huge technical person. Um, so I always find I've had a couple technical jobs, that I am now like the de facto IT person for my friends and family. Is that you as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've got grandpa usually texts me every week with something. My iPad photos won't sync, or my Fitbit, it's not connecting. It's always something.
Yeah.
That's how I'm usually perceived as the IT tech guy, for
Yeah, you're
sure.
like the low key, just, "Oh, you should know everything because you
Oh
work
yeah.
in technology, so, like, you'll know how to fix my Fitbit or my Apple this or my Android that." It's like, "N Okay, yeah, I can Google."
Or it's always, hey, you got your phone on you? Look this up. Look this up. It's like, oh my god, everyone in this room has a phone.
Yeah, that's always yeah, yeah, I know my dad doesn't listen to this, but he calls me probably once or twice a week to print something from their printer at home, and I'm like, "You just gotta click the print button." He's like, "It's not working," and I'm like, "Okay."
It's always
So I
something.
yeah, connect and all that stuff, but, yeah. Um, has any movie or TV show accurately shown what you do at work?
Um, so the closest one would be Mr. Robot,
Okay.
the television series. Came out a couple
Mhm.
years ago. It's pretty good, actually, as a show in general. And they do the best job I've seen so far of depicting actual attack scenarios. Um, and they do show some on-screen like code, and the tools that they're using, it's accurate. They're legitimate tools, and the
Mhm.
processes that they go through, and the scenarios that they play out are actual scenarios that could happen. So it made it definitely more believable. It's not just green matrix on the screen, people
Yeah.
tapping on keyboard like,
Yeah.
oh, we're hacking away type deal. So
Yeah.
I definitely appreciated that throughout that series, for
It's
sure.
not just somebody going, "Enhance,
Oh yeah.
enhance," and somehow it's doing everything. Um, how do you explain your role to non-technical people?
This is definitely a tricky one.
Yeah, I'm sure any, dinner party or whatever, you're out with people. "What do you do?" "Oh,
Yeah, it's actually harder than I thought it would be. But I usually stick with, I'm in cybersecurity, um, and then if they continue to ask more questions, I kind of break it down as like, I secure my company's infrastructure, and I protect our sensitive data from hackers. That's like the kind of the one liner that I give.
Yeah,
And if they want more, then that usually requires, okay, well, let's step over here, let's grab a drink, because I have to explain
yeah.
what a network is, like kind of go down the rabbit hole of, it can be hard, especially if you're used to speaking in industry terminologies or acronyms,
Oh, yeah.
and you just start ripping them off, and they're like deer in the headlights, like,
Yeah, I have
well,
no
I
idea
don't,
what you're talking
what
about,
what is a DLP? I don't get it.
Yeah. What's endpoint? What's
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
all those things.
that is sometimes a barrier, but usually I can get away with just throwing out the one liner.
Yeah, I worked at a company once upon a time that thought everyone's job needed to be real secretive and you shouldn't talk about what you want. They're like, "If anybody asks you what you do, just tell them you're in insurance because nobody ever asks a follow-up question to when you say you're
Oh,
in
okay,
insurance."
we know what insurance.
"Oh, okay, yeah, insurance, okay."
Yeah.
Yeah, and, my last question, how intense is your home network setup? Like, I'm assuming you're not just using whatever modem, Verizon sent you.
No.
I'm
Nope.
sure you know.
Yep. So I've got a mesh network set up. I'm not going to give the brand out, but
Yep,
I've got a
I'll ask
mesh.
you offline.
Yep. Mesh network set up, and I do have some detection and response tools running on my network, and that sends alerts to my phone, to my email.
Yeah.
Um, there's not much going on, and hopefully it stays this way after this podcast.
Yeah.
But it just gives me peace of mind, at least. And then obviously, I'm running your antivirus and everything on all my machines and
Yeah.
whatnot. But yeah, on top of that, that's pretty much the high level of what I got
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, seems pretty accurate. I mean, I have something very similar. I have a mesh network as well. So, interested once we stop recording, I'll ask you some more in depth questions on that.
Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, Owen, thank you for stopping by and talking with me. I know you said that you've started doing more kind of social interaction stuff. Is there any social media or anything you'd want to share? Any place people can contact you if they have questions or
Uh,
anything like that?
Sure. Yep. I can share my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So it's if you just my profile name would be Owen Dubiel 66. So if you just look that up, it'll pull my profile right up, and yeah, you can hit me up. Feel free to message me. Be happy to talk.
Cool. Awesome. I will include that in the link below on the YouTube version for everybody listening. We'll also put in the podcast notes so you can connect with Owen there. But thanks again, Owen, for stopping by. Really appreciated the conversation and happy to have you on board at Cybrary.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.